Okay. So sit yourself on your left. Just have a little wriggle about, just make sure that you feel evenly based. Hold onto your knees and then lift up into the chest, drawing your shoulders down away from your ears. Just look down at the floor, look at something that's not moving. Just listen to the sound of your breath. So long, slow, deep, deliberate inhalations. Long, slow, deep, deliberate exhalations. Soften your jaw, soften your tongue, soften your throat. Just listening to the sound of the breath as it enters and as it exits. Drawing your attention into your breath is like gathering your attention into the physical body. Release your knees, bring your hands into Namaste, press the palms firmly together, and then with an exhalation, allow your eyes to gently close. Just continuing to gather your attention inwards by focusing your attention on the breath. And then with an exhalation, draw your chin down to meet your chest. Spend a moment to seek to generate a genuine, heartfelt sense of gratitude for something or someone or somewhere. Hold on to that feeling of abundance in your heart area. And then release the backs of your hands down to your knees, lift up into the chest, and then raise your head upwards. Just hold on to your knees, lift up into the chest, elevating the spine towards the ceiling. Take a deep inhalation in through the nose. And then turn to the right, turn in the abdomen, really drawing your belly button to face the right knee and beyond. Pressing that right foot firmly into the floor so that you can turn the abdomen, turn the chest. And then come back to the center, lift up into your chest. Driving the chest up to the ceiling, driving the heart area up to the ceiling. And then keep that region lifted as you turn to the left, drawing your abdomen across. And then come back to the center. Come onto your knees, sitting back on your heels, and just really bring the seat bones down onto the heels really firm, so that you've got some space to stretch forward. So sitting back on your heels, just lifting up into the chest. Again, driving forwards with the heart area. So just lift up into your chest, elevating the heart area up to the ceiling, keeping that area lifting, elevating upwards. And then coming forward, stretching forwards, keeping the heart area elevating, keeping the head lifted. And then bring the forehead down to the floor. Just breathing evenly and deeply, listening to the sound of the breath. Pressing the forehead into the floor, pressing the area between the eyebrows into the floor, keeping the seat bones hitting down, stretching into your arms. Just come up onto your knees, turn your toes under, and then come up into dog down. Lifting up to the ceiling with the seat bones, lifting into the chest. Just let your head hang down. Just observe the presence of attention within the physical body. If you can't draw your attention inwards, then really just focus on activating the muscles. Activating the muscles of the legs, the upper legs, the kneecaps, the shins, the arms, the shoulders, the chest. Just draw your attention into the feeling of the pose and see the pose through that sensation. Keep your hands where they are, keep your feet where they are, and come up into dog, up, urdhva, mukha, svanasana. Push into your heels really deeply. Lift up into the front chest. Breathing evenly. And then come up into dog down. Just breathe in fully and deeply into the pose. Step the feet forwards, come up into a standing position. Come into half uttanasana if you have any back problems, or full uttanasana if you don't. So half uttanasana, just using support for your hands, just coming halfway and really activating the legs. Otherwise, raise your arms up to the ceiling, extending upwards, broadening the chest, lifting the heart area to the ceiling. Bring the feet as wide apart as the mat, turning your toes in, Bring the thumbs into the crease of the elbows, wrapping your fingers around your elbows. Keep your head lifted. Keep your arms lifted as you hinge at the hips, driving forwards with the heart area. Driving forwards with the heart area and then hang down. Breathing evenly, deeply, listening to the breath. Keep breathing in through the nose, filling the lungs, and using the out breath to extend your arms down to the floor a little more. Keeping the legs straight, keeping the legs lifting out of the heels up into the hips. And then very gently release your hands down to the floor. Just come into half uttanasana. If you can't reach the floor, then bring your hands onto your shins, extending forwards with the heart area, and then bring your hands into your hips, and then come up into standing position. Just come into tadasana. So just lifting up into tadasana, the inner edge of the feet together, just lifting up into the chest. Driving the heart region up to the ceiling so that you broaden at the abdomen. Just feel how at first your weight may fluctuate between the 2 feet, landing on one more than the other, but then really consciously activate your feet into the floor. Press the feet consciously into the floor. And then perhaps you start to find greater levelness of effort. Tuck the tailbone in gently. Lift the abdomen up to the diaphragm, diaphragm up to the collarbone. Bring your arms out nice and wide into your chest, and then step or jump your feet apart nice and wide. Turn your left toes in, your right leg and foot all the way out, and then come down into trikonasana with straight legs. So straightening that front leg, turning the chest, looking upwards. So remember, you can just bring, if you've got stiffness or resistance in your hips, you bring that front leg forwards beyond the toes of the back foot. Just come gently. Or you can always, so Andrew, if you're kind of struggling in hamstrings today, you can always just use, so you can always just use a chair. Just bring your hand onto the top of the chair. So you come down lower, so you don't overwork. So you can always get yourself a chair. And then when you come into the pose, you just come down onto the chair, but you keep your legs straight. Turning the chest, lifting upwards. Just breathing evenly and deeply, listening to the breath. Reach up with the top hand, come back to the center, swap the feet around. So bring the chair onto the other side if you're using it. Lift up into the chest and then reach down. Find the leg and then reach up. Breathing evenly, keeping both legs really firm. reach up with the top hand, come back to the center, and then step or jump your feet back together, and then come back into Tadasana, lifting up into the chest. Breathing evenly, just listening to the sound of the breath. And then bring your feet hip width apart, turning your toes in. If you know that you can't reach your toes, then get your belt, and then hook the belt around the big toes for padangusthasana. So you bring the belt around the big toes, and then as you come forward, you keep coming forwards with the heart area, and then you just come forwards as much as is comfortable to do. Otherwise, have your feet hip width apart, turning the toes inwards so that the big toes are considerably closer together than the heels are. Stamp the big toes into the floor, spread the toes, lift up into your chest, lifting the heart area up to the ceiling. And then bring the palms to face the front, and then hinge at the hips, keeping the head lifted, keeping your arms lifted, driving forwards with the heart area. So you come forwards all the way down. Even when you can reach the floor, keep driving forwards with the heart area. So I can find the floor easily, but I'm still reaching into the middle of the room. And then hook the big toe with the index finger and the middle finger underneath the big toe, and the thumb around the outside of the big toe. And then hit your shins back so that your weight is in your heels. And then lift the seat bones away from your heels, and then drive the heart area forwards, keeping the kneecaps really tightened. Drawing the fronts of the knees through to the backs of the knees. Drawing the fronts of the thighs through to the backs of the thighs. Turning the fronts of the thighs inwards, extending into the chin and the chest, extending the heart area forwards, keeping the head lifted. So we don't try and come forwards with the head. If you do that, then you start to round your back. You come forwards with the heart area. If you can, then bend your elbows out to the side, having a bit of a tug of war with your big toes, stamping them down, trying to rip them up at the same time. If you can bring the body all the way down, then just let your head hang down. Breathing evenly, feeling that the backs of the legs are lifting from the heel all the way up the back of the leg towards the seat bones, lifting and drawing those seat bones up towards the ceiling. And then just lift the chest, come forwards, driving into, just let go of your toes, coming back into half uttanasana. Just breathing evenly, and then bring your hands into your hips, and then come up into Tadasana. Just lifting up into the chest, broadening the heart area, lifting up into the ceiling. Just breathing evenly and deeply, stretching forwards, interlocking the fingers right into the webbing of the hands. Turn the palms all the way out, and then raise your arms over your head, baddangulyasana. Just release your arms, swap the interlock of the fingers, turn the palms all the way out, and then raise your arms up. And then gently release your arms, and then stand on the back edge of your mat for prasarita padottanasna. So stand in the middle of your mat on the back edge so that your heels are on the back edge, and then lift up into the chest. Breathing evenly, bring your arms out nice and wide in towards the chest, and then step or jump your feet wide. So go really wide with your legs. Turn your toes inwards, even if you have to bend your knees to do it, and then really straighten the legs, tighten the kneecaps. Have your hands on your hips, and then lift up into the chest. Squeeze the elbows behind you, and then lift up into the heart area. And then drive that heart area forward, keeping the head lifted, keeping the arms extending up to the ceiling, and then reach down, find the floor. So breathe evenly, lift the seat bones up towards the ceiling, keep turning the fronts of the thighs inwards, so that the backs of the thighs broaden in the opposite direction, outwards. So that outward action of the backs of the legs helps to really elevate the seat bones. Project the chin and the chest forwards. If you can, keep driving forwards with the heart area, and then bring your head down onto the floor. Or if your head doesn't reach the floor, put a block or some blocks underneath your head. If you're miles away, then just stay in the first stage, at the first stage. So if you can reach around the outsides of your ankles and draw them in, stamping the heels down, keeping the weight in your legs, not allowing lots of weight to drive down onto your head. Breathe in evenly and deeply. So you can let go of your ankles and then bring your hands back so that the heels of the hands are in line with the heels of the feet. And then maybe you can even stretch your arms between your legs, palms facing down, really pressing your hands down into the floor, like you're going to jump up into a headstand. But the hands are straight, palms facing down, pressing into the floor. Trying to keep the weight off your head, keeping the legs really firmly activated. And then come back to the stage where the heels of your hands are in line with the heels of the feet. And then lift the chest, come back to the halfway point. And then bring the palms of the hands down onto the floor, bend your knees, and then step or jump your feet back together. And then just come into Tadasana, and then raise your arms up in sirvasana. Just breathing evenly, keeping your attention on the breath. And then release your arms, bring your feet hip width apart, turn your toes in, raise your arms up, hook the thumbs into the crease of the elbows, wrap your fingers around your elbows, coming forwards with the heart area, and then just hang down in uttanasana. Go into half uttanasana if there are back problems. So really activating the legs really firmly, hitting the heels outwards, hitting the shins back so that your weight is in your heels, lifting the seat bones up to the ceiling. Activating the legs really firmly so that you can just let go in the upper body. This works as an inversion for the upper body. So it's good if there are coughs and colds, just to help support that. Just release your hands down to the floor. Just come into half uttanasana momentarily. And then keep your feet where they are, but just let the heels lift if need be. And then walk your hands forwards, come back into dog down. Let your head hang down, press the palms into the floor. Can you find evenness of action between the two legs, between the two arms, between the torso and the legs, the torso and the arms? Just resting down if you need to, or staying and maintaining if you can. Okay, come down onto your knees. Just sit back on your heels. Just observe the difference in your energy. Sitting back on your heels, lifting up into the chest. Breathing evenly and deeply. And then just sit on your seat bones and stretch your legs out in front. And then just stretch your legs out for dandasana. Have a belt for your feet. If you find that you kind of sink in the chest, then sit on a folded blanket or on a block or two. Just roll over, move the buttock flesh out to the side so that you're sitting right directly on the seat bones. And then stretch your heels away. Get the belt and then just throw the belt around your feet. Press the toes into, press the ball joint of the foot into the belt, and then activate your legs like you're doing Tadasana. Pressing the fronts of the knees through to the backs of the knees, pressing the shins down into the floor, turning the shins inwards, turning the fronts of the thighs inwards, activating the thigh muscles, and then lifting up into the chest. Just finding that sense of evenness of action between the legs and the torso. So lifting the heart area upwards, drawing the shoulders down away from your ears at the same time. Just breathing evenly. If you can come forwards, if there's no problem with your back and you can come forwards, then just shorten the distance between your hands and your feet. But then each time you come forwards, keep the head lifted, keep the heart area driving forwards. If you can reach the feet a little bit at a time, then do. If you can reach around the feet, then do. Keep the heart area lifted. Keep the legs really firmly activated. Lifting up into the chest, slamming the legs really firmly into the floor. If you can reach around your feet, then again, do. Lifting up into the chest. So we come into paschimottanasna. But keep the legs really firmly pressed down into the floor, lifting up into the heart area. So it could be easy to just drop your head down, but then that happens at the expense of rounding your back. You can hurt your back as well. So just come forwards, driving your chin towards your feet. Breathing evenly and deeply listening to the breath. When the chest is in contact with the legs, then you can bring the head down, or you can use a block for your head. So maintaining the action of the legs. That's really important. Smile as you go. Okay, and then just lift the head. And then come into just cross legs. Hold onto your knees and lift the chest upwards, driving the chest up to the ceiling. Taking deep inhalations, deep exhalations, driving the chest up to the ceiling. And then turn to the right side, drawing your abdomen across, your ribs across, your shoulders across. Feel the energy that you release internally. Bring in energy to the muscles and the flesh and the skin. Come back to the center. So hold onto your knees, lift up into the chest. Take a deep inhalation and then turn to the left. Just breathing evenly and deeply, just feeling how you release your energy as you turn into the pose. And then come back to the center. Just bring the feet into baddangulyasana, soles of the feet close to the seat bones, hold onto the big toes, and then lift up into the chest. If you find that holding onto the big toes kind of makes you drop here and it feels like you can't kind of really lift and open the chest, then get a belt and have a little bit of extra distance from the feet, and then lift up into the chest. Have a block or two nearby, because we're going to come forwards in padottanasna, and maybe you might need a block for your head, or maybe for your hands. Lift up into the chest, driving the chest upwards, just holding onto the big toes or onto the belt, pressing the legs down into the floor. Lift up into the chest, and again coming forwards with the heart area, driving the heart area forwards, keeping the head lifted. Maybe you can bend your elbows into the inner thighs, drawing those inner thighs into the inner knees, coming forwards a little bit at a time. Just be cautious of doing this if you have a bad back, and then reach forwards and then reach down. Have a block for underneath your head. But keep lifting the chest. When the head is down, keep lifting the heart area. You go down lower, then use the lower part of the block. You can always use a seat of a chair if you can't reach a block, or pile up some blocks. Okay, and then come back to the center, and then just cross your legs the kind of unnatural way. So the other leg in front than you would do normally. Lift up into your chest, driving the chest upwards. Take a deep inhalation and then turn to the right side. and then come back to the center. Hold onto your knees, lift up into the chest. Take a deep inhalation and then turn to the left. And then come back to the center. Just come down onto your back with the bolster underneath your back, so into supta konasana. You might want a blanket for your head, so just coming down onto the floor. Just make sure that your blanket is well folded before you rely on it to support your head. And then just come down, bringing the feet together, just lifting up into the chest, and then broadening the chest using the bolster. It's just your arms resting on the floor, just feeling the broadness of the chest. The broadness of the chest, the broadness of the diaphragm region, the broadness of the abdomen. Just listening to the breath. You can use blocks underneath your underneath your hips if there is stiffness in your hips. Just focusing on the breath, on the broadening action, especially at the diaphragm. Feeling the lungs from the bottom to the top. Emptying the lungs from the top to the bottom. And then push your elbows into the floor. Lift with the chest and the heart area first. Try not to poke your head forwards. Just come up into a seated position, just sitting cross legs. Just hold onto your knees, just observe the change in your energy. Draw your chin down to meet your chest. Lift your chest up to meet your chin. Just take some deep inhalations, deep exhalations. Just filling the body with energy as you inhale. And then just raise your head. Just come down onto your back. Just have your bolster nearby where you can reach it. Just a restorative setubandha. So just lift up, bring the bolster underneath the seat bone, the small of the back, so the tailbone and the sacrum and the lumbar area, and then come right up onto the tops of your shoulders. You can even rest your arms on the floor over your head, as long as you can stay lifted in the chest. Try not to sink in the chest. And then bend your knees in towards your chest, and then raise your legs up. Viparita karanhi. So if you find that you sink in the chest and it inhibits your breath, then just bring your arms to the sides of the hips, press in your elbows really firmly into the floor so you can lift the chest. So viparita karanhi, using the bolster just to give yourself a little extra elevation. And then just bend your knees, just bring your feet down onto the floor. Just stay on the bolster with the bolster underneath the lumbar area, just lifting up into the chest. And again, just you can stretch your arms over your head. So again, just a gentle, supported inversion, but trying to keep the chest lifted, trying not to let the chest sink. Filling the lungs evenly on both sides, from the bottom to the top, and emptying the lungs evenly on both sides, from the top to the bottom. Just feeling the lungs filling and emptying. And then bring your arms to the sides of the body. Just lift the seat bones up. Just roll the bolster away. And then just have the bolster underneath your knees as you rest down into supta, into shavasana. If your head rolls back, then have a blanket foot underneath your head. If you're wearing glasses, it's nice to take them off just to give yourself just a little extra relaxation. Just observe how the bolster underneath your knees helps to soften out and even out tension in the lumbar, lengthening out the neck, lengthening out the spine. Consciously unhooking the legs and the arm muscles so that the body becomes heavy on the floor. The more you can release the body into the floor, the more you'll observe that sensation of lightness that radiates out from the bones, penetrating the muscle and the flesh and the skin. That feeling of energetic lightness on the inside. Using your in-breath and your out-breath to help distribute that feeling of lightness evenly down to the top, down to the toes, into the tips of the fingers and into the top of the head. Basking in that feeling of energetic lightness. And then when you're ready, just gently wiggle your toes, wiggle your fingers, just bring yourself back into this pose of Shavasana. And then bend your knees, bring your feet onto the bolster, let the knees just rest together. Feel that you're pressing your back into the floor gently. And then draw your knees in towards your chest. Just have a little grounding massage on your back. Just bringing yourself back into the body, back into the room. And then roll onto your right side. Just stay down for a breath or two. And then straighten out the top leg. Come back up into a seated position. Just final cross legs with your hands in the masti. Just a final spinal lift. Drawing the breath in through the nose, down into the abdomen. Be conscious of the energy that you have released through your practice this morning, that good, positive, healthy flow of clean energy that the extensions and the forward bends and the twists and the inversions and the reclining poses bring to the body and to the mind. And then draw your chin down to meet your chest. Spend a moment to acknowledge the positive energy you've created inside. And then radiate some of that positive energy out into the world. And then very gently just release the backs of your hands down toward your knees. Palms facing upwards, and as you raise your head, allow your eyes to softly open and the focus to softly come back. Thank you very much. Thank you. So hopefully you feel as though you've lifted your energy, given yourself a good old stretch, good old balanced stretch, and you feel like you've got lots of energy to put into your day. So thank you very much for joining me.